Hi, I'm Spike, and I have some really conflicting feelings about some nerd stuff. In this case, I'm talking Transformers again, but don't worry, not everything I talk about is going to be about the Transformers. In fact, the next video, I'm going to be talking about some DC comic stuff, so stay tuned for that. But this thing just came out, and I feel the need to talk about it while it's still fresh in my mind. Just a warning here, there's going to be some heavy spoilers for the currently ongoing Skybound Transformers comics, so if you haven't read them and you want to, then please go and do that before watching this. At the time of this recording, Transformers issue 30 has just dropped, and I have some seriously mixed feelings about it. Now, I'm planning on making a full video talking about the Daniel Warren Johnson run of this series, as I have a lot to talk about there. But the short version of that is when DWJ took the reins of this comic book reboot, I was pumped and excited, though I have to admit that I did feel a tiny bit let down by the fact that they were doing the same generic Generation 1 designs that Hasbro refuses to let go of, which personally I have been sick of for years now. Still, the art was excellent. Even when DWJ was no longer on art duties due to burnout and George Corona took over instead, who skillfully continued Johnson's grungy, grimy aesthetic, meaning that the art change ended up being extremely smooth. Now, despite certain issues that I'm gonna get into one day, the first 24 issues of Transformers 2023 told an overall really compelling story, albeit one which I felt had some pacing issues, being way too fast and having way too much frenetic energy all the time. Like the entire series was set to 11 90% of the time. I also wish that it took more time between fights to have characters catch their breath and have some much needed character exploration and development. Then with issue 25, the writing and art team got overhauled, with Robert Kirkman taking over the writing and modern art legend Dan Mora taking over the penciling. To say that going from Johnson and Corona's dirty and gritty look to Mora's smooth and sleek aesthetic was jarring is an understatement to say the very least. And there was a lot of discussion about this, even a lot of complaining about it early on, despite the popularity of Dan Mora in the comic book scene. Still though, Kirkman is one of my favorite comic book writers of all time. He has proven time and time again that he can deliver excellent narratives with satisfying conclusions, from small-scale stuff to massive war stories, and maintain excellent character work which holds up to this day. Unfortunately, in my opinion, all of the weaknesses of the Johnson run are amplified here. The series under Kirkman so far has been fight, 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 just like Johnson's run, but it lacks the quiet scenes of reflection, moments when characters would explore their vulnerabilities in emotional states that he did throw in there in the first 24 issues. Kirkman even undid certain interesting developments at complete random, resurrecting several characters, making other characters as tragic fates no longer a factor, undoing the paralysis of one of our main characters for seemingly no reason, and kind of resetting a lot of things, making so much of the Johnson run weirdly fall flat in hindsight. This video, however, is specifically about what happened in the most recent issue at the time of this recording, issue 30. And a few creative decisions that I personally think are potentially bad calls, depending on how things go from here. First, some context. During the Johnson run, we got introduced to this universe's version of Elita 1, who in this instance is a battle-hardened, war-scarred, traumatized, rageful general who is leading the resistance on Cybertron. Now personally, I actually like the characterization that she was given during the Johnson run. It gives us something interesting to do, and it allows some exploration into the emotional and mental effect that a devastating war is having on the Autobot military members on Cybertron. She is especially embittered towards Optimus Prime, who she feels is a traitor and a deserter who left Cybertron in search of ways to save it from its impending loss of energy and slow planet-scale demise. It's completely understandable why she is the way that she is. And when Optimus sacrifices a chunk of Cybertron to protect Earth, a world that's alien to them that Elita cares nothing for, nor does she have much of a reason to, she becomes even more embittered. Desperate though she is to have Optimus back in her life, and it's pretty clearly hinted that the two had some form of emotional entanglement before this, she's understandably enraged at his decision to prioritize aliens over his and her own people. Well, now we reach issue 30. Alita has made her way back to Earth for the first time since that last encounter ended in disaster for their homeworld. At last, she confronts Optimus Prime. In this moment, she challenges him to combat and demands to be allowed to wield the Matrix of Leadership, Restorer of Life, symbol of the Autobots, the device which contains all the wisdom and minds of all those to whom it was bestowed before. Questionably, it may also be a relic containing some of the life-giving power of Primus, the Cybertronian creator god, though we don't really know if this is necessarily true in the Skybound continuity. After a fight in which Alita is quite brutal and does not hold back, Optimus concedes that perhaps his choices recently have not been for the best, and questions who truly deserves to wield the Matrix. The Matrix is not a device which can be taken, it must be bestowed, and it must choose for itself. Optimus opens his chest and allows the Matrix to make the choice between the two. And after a few pages, it chooses Alita 1, transforming her into Alita Prime, reverting Optimus to the form that he once had before he was chosen to be Prime. Alita 1 then decrees that all Autobots on Earth must now make a choice: follow her to Cybertron and join the war effort, or stay on Earth and be branded as traitors and Autobots no more. Incidentally, I find it really funny that Thundercracker literally just joined the Autobots like a couple of issues ago due to his own moral decision, and almost immediately he gets kicked out of that group and has to scrub off the insignia that he only just got. That's just hilarious, I'm sorry. Now, I asked for some folks' reaction to this issue, and I did a little bit of searching in various places for general reactions, and the results were interesting. There isn't really a cohesive consensus on this direction. I found a lot of people saying that the writing had taken a nosedive, thinking that it was a letdown or mediocre, but by that same token, almost as many people were actually excited about the future of this series from this point on. Finding people completely satisfied with the current direction actually wasn't that difficult. Now, for me, this is a little bit complicated to talk about. Like I said, I like how Alita 1 has been written thus far in the series. She makes a lot of sense, and despite the fact that I obviously side with Optimus here, with the argument that he needs to stay on Earth in order to deal with Megatron and the Decepticons in this world to prevent them from committing an act of mass genocide against the human race, who Optimus is personally responsible for endangering, I also think she kinda has a point. Their world is dying. And it does Cybertron little good in the long run to spend their resources defending a planet that they are strangers to when their home is dying and needs them. That said, my first criticism is this. I straight up don't believe that the Matrix would or should choose Alita over Optimus in the situation. Optimus is standing on moral grounds here, while Alita is standing on pragmatic grounds, which is heavily morally compromised. Now, I think at a certain point that the series is likely to have Alita turn around and decide that she was wrong, and almost certainly Optimus is going to regain the Matrix eventually. The only justification I can think of for the Matrix, which I will remind you contains the minds and wisdom of the original Primes and all of the leaders who once held it, to choose Alita over Optimus, is that perhaps its priority, or maybe its programming depending on how it works in this version, is on the preservation of Cybertron over a moral duty. Or perhaps the corruption of Optimus's mind from when he once wielded Megatron's arm isn't fully gone, and thus it decides on another Autobot until his mind can be cleared of that madness, though the series seems to have forgotten about that plot point. Hi, I'm not working from a script while I record this. This is me way later on. It has been quite a few days since I recorded the rest of this audio. I don't know if it's going to sound weird now, but anyway, I realized something kind of weird about not just the rest of the Transformers fandom, but myself as well. We always kind of treat the Matrix of Leadership as if it is actually the single moral authority in the entire Transformers franchise, in every version that it exists, because that's kind of how the Matrix has been represented ever since Generation 1. I'm actually hard-pressed to think of a time where the Matrix is in a story where they make it wrong, unless it's a story like in Marvel UK or the Regeneration 1 comic by Simon Furman, where it's been actively corrupted by Unicron. But ignoring corruption stories, the Matrix is always narratively treated like the moral authority that the audience and the characters in the story have to trust, because it's just right. It's just correct. It is the thing that has the ultimate say on what's right and wrong. And I'm just now realizing that I never really thought about the fact that, like, the Matrix could just be wrong. The Matrix could just be incorrect. It could make a bad call. Like, what if, and I'm not saying this is exactly what's going to happen. What if Kirkman is actually saying something with this in the future, or at some point, where he will actually call into question the fact that we're just putting our trust in this thing that just has existed for like millennia, for beyond millennia, for eons, that exists and is treated like the ultimate authority on everything, on morality, on goodness, on who deserves to be a leader, when that's a screwed up system when you think about it. Like, why is the Matrix the one that gets to determine who gets to lead and who doesn't? Like, what if the Matrix is simply wrong? And I think if they do go into that, if they do actually discuss that, that could potentially genuinely be really interesting, and an idea that I'm not sure if Transformers has really done outside of More Than Meets the Eye, where they kind of way over-explained, in my opinion, what the Matrix was in that, but whatever. I don't think really in like a take on Transformers that's similar to that goes along similar lines to the Skybound stuff has ever really gone into the idea of what if the Matrix is simply wrong. Anyway, back to the stuff I scripted, back to the stuff I said a few days ago. Another potential issue here is that from this moment on, Optimus no longer has the power of the Matrix holding him up, something which multiple times has been used as a kind of Deus Ex Machina device to get him out of a jam. This could go both ways in terms of how it's handled. It seems pretty clear that Optimus without the Matrix will no longer be a physical or military match for Megatron. Optimus already had a difficult time matching Megatron's raw power and savagery in previous bouts, especially as this incarnation of Megatron already has a dark matrix of his own. So how those fights will go on from here, now that Optimus has a significant disadvantage in size, strength, and ampage, well, that'll be interesting to see. Granted, my personal favorite incarnation of the Transformers of all time is animated from 2007, and that was a version of Optimus who was consistently at a complete disadvantage against Megatron in every conceivable way until he was eventually bolstered by some upgrades and the powerful Magnus Hammer. So I know that this type of matchup between these two characters can work if it's written well. We'll just have to see how Kirkman handles it. Also, we now have a further split Autobot force, the Renegades on Earth with Optimus, and those who left with Alita. Now, this is understandable. It makes sense that some of these characters would choose to leave for one reason or another. But I will admit that some of the choices here are really weird. Bulkhead, for example, only just got reintroduced and barely had anything to do besides punch people. It seems rather strange to me to make a big deal out of introducing him, then do nothing with him, only for him to leave again. Obviously, we will be having at least some focus on the Cybertron-based Autobots, of which he is now among, but it still seems like a really odd choice, especially with a character who, discounting the awful Energon incarnation, was originally introduced and explored in its connection to Earth, its culture, and in particular, its art. Okay, side note, I really miss how Bulkhead was handled back then. Like, he was such a more interesting character as a complex and socially awkward guy with interests in art and engineering before Transformers Prime flattened his character out and made him a generic bruiser guy. Anyway, moving on to the next point. Oh, and let's not forget how Earth now has some of the most powerful and influential Decepticons around, outside of Titans like Trypticon or Scorponok. Right now, Megatron's plan is to strip mine Earth for every natural resource it's got and return to Cybertron with all the power that he'd need to restore it to its former glory, but with him at its head and all the military might that he would need to annihilate the Autobots for good. Alita is kind of an idiot for abandoning Earth and not caring what happens to it, considering that it might genuinely be the single most essential element in the Decepticon campaign. Optimus really ought to have brought that up when the two talk, but no, he argues on moral and emotional grounds, despite her motivation being tactical and largely emotionally detached. I feel like he really could have talked her down if he'd led with this argument. One more note about Skybound Transformers comics under Kirkman, and it absolutely bears out in this issue too. Does anyone else feel like every single issue since Kirkman took over is wasting time and panel space? In every single issue since number 25, none of them have felt to me like they're actually respected the readership's time or investment. I mean, issue 29 is a completely pointless and meaningless generic fight between Autobots and Decepticons, and literally the only thing that happened in it which affects the plot in any way is Alita showing up in the very last page in a full page spread to waste as much space as possible. Bear in mind that these things are about $5 each, and every single issue feels padded and practically plotless. Almost nothing happens in these individual issues to make them worth picking up. Now, issue 30 is the one with the most plot development that we've gotten thus far in the Kirkman era, and the only thing that occurs with it, this one specifically, is that Alita 1 beats up Optimus, takes the Matrix, and leaves. That could have been handled in half, maybe even a quarter of the time it takes for all of this to occur in 20 pages of the comic, and it would have room for a full narrative. Issue 30 is an especially egregious example of this. Just look at how much page space is wasted here. How few panels are on several pages just to stretch things out and waste our money as much as possible. 2 panels, 3, a huge single page spread with 1 cutaway panel, a full page dedicated solely to the opening of the Matrix, and 1, 2, 3 full page spreads, wasting all of that space which could have been used for actual story content, rather than wasting it on pure spectacle. Now don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying that full page spreads or few panels per page is always universally a bad thing. I'm not even saying that they're really bad in a 20-page issue, but when there's this little plot happening in a single issue and it feels like nothing's really been accomplished, I reach the end feeling like I didn't actually get my $5 worth of story this month. You know how that makes me feel? It makes me feel like dropping the damn book because clearly the creative team do not respect the readership enough to make it worth all that cash. Like, maybe I'm wrong here, but for my money, no medium is nearly as expensive per installment as comics are. And I think more creators need to recognize that, and they need to ensure that every single issue counts somehow. And I'm sorry, but I really don't feel like Kirkman is putting the effort in to make these issues worth it. It feels to me like we're being strung along, and I know that is what comic books have always done, strung the readership along issue after issue with no conclusion in sight. But you shouldn't have to feel like that's what's happening. So many of Kirkman's Transformers issues feel like they stop in the middle of things without individual issues having a point to them. And that's gotten so very tiresome. I know that he is capable of better than this, and I really don't get why this is how the series is being handled. I mean, there's written for the trade, and then there's, haha, we wasted your time. As for issue 30 specifically, I don't know. I'm not left feeling entirely confident in the direction of the series from here on out. It's not that any of these concepts like Alita's rage or the passing of the Matrix or Optimus no longer being a prime or splitting the Autobots or dividing the narrative between Cybertron and Earth are bad in principle. It's just that I don't feel like Kirkman has executed any of these ideas nearly as well as he could have. And I absolutely do feel like he has the skill to pull any and all of these things off. It's just that he didn't quite stick the landing, in my opinion, with any of these things so far. Now, the issue isn't exactly bad, but it doesn't leave me with the sense that Kirkman is cooking up anything all that spectacular or interesting to me either. It's more development than we've gotten previously since Kirkman took over, but that's not saying much. Personally, I'm about 6 issues away from just dropping this book if it doesn't get any better soon. Anyway, that's Transformers issue 30. Are you guys keeping up with the series? Let me know if you're still as invested now as when we all started. Are you happy with Kirkman's writing as it is? Did you like the twist with Alita gaining the Matrix? I actually genuinely want to know and discuss it. Till next time.